Oh, I'm so glad it works. I'm so glad it worked, you guys. This is Throwback Thursdays. Thank you so much for joining me for Throwback Thursdays, where we take a movie from yesteryear. In this particular instance, this is Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark. And we're just going to review it. 1 year later, does it still hold up? It This movie has a 78 on Rotten Tomatoes, which is not necessarily an indication. I don't know if you guys are aware of Rotten Tomato scores. Let me, just in case you aren't, and if you are, bear with me, I'm just going to give you a brief explanation. Rotten Tomato scores does not mean how good the movie is. It's kind of an indication as to the quality of the film, kind of, but not entirely. All a Rotten Tomato scores means is how many of 100% of people that saw the movie, how many people actually like the movie. It's not technically an indication of how good or how poor it is. It just means how many people liked it. And either you liked it or you didn't. That's the scale. Like, dislike, that's it. There's no gradient. There's no, there's more algorithms, and, the deeper you can get into the Metacritic score and see what the critics say versus the fans, all that stuff. Like, all that is embedded in there, and some of it is taken into account, but very, very, very little. The actual percentage score on Rotten Tomatoes just means how many people, both critics and fans, how many liked it, how many disliked it. So 12% didn't really care for Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark, but 78% really did. Well, I can't say they really did, but they liked it. And I assume that probably even more than that really liked it. Even, you know what I mean. I'm not going to get into percentages. Anyway, I am one of those people that really liked Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark. I think this is a really fun film. I just rewatched it earlier this morning. I think it is the kind of film that, the Goosebumps movie is a completely different thing. It was basing its audience towards like a younger audience. Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark, similar concept, a little bit more of an adult audience. Which is interesting because these books that the movie was based on were initially targeted towards like children. They're not scary stories. They're just creepy. The tone of them is really dark and just eerie. There's I remember there's one story, I can't remember the name of it. The whole idea is that there's this girl in a truck. She's driving her truck. It's dark. It's at night, and there's somebody in the back seat, and she doesn't know that there's somebody in the back seat. And this person in the back seat is gonna get her. And just as she pulls into the driveway, her father's standing there with a shotgun, yelling at her, and she's lost in the confusion. And then the shotgun goes off, and then she opens her eyes, come to realize, my father didn't shoot me. He shot the guy in the back seat. Whoa! And I guess that was the reveal. I think throughout the majority of the story, we had no idea that there was somebody in the back seat. Until, he got shot or something like that. Anyway, and it's just kind of like this weird and creepy, like, can you imagine? Like, you were in the car with this person the whole time and you had no idea. Like, what if? And I think that what if factor is something that really makes these stories jump out and become interesting and fascinating and spooky and creepy and eerie. Not necessarily scary per se. If you're a child, if you're a small child, you will probably be very scared of these things. The effects in this movie were done very well. They stayed very faithful to the books. I was really impressed. I was really, really, really impressed with Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark. I like the direction of the film. For the most part, the acting was great. And so all that, let's jump into acting. Let's break this movie down. Let's talk about the acting. Everyone's acting was pretty good. I really liked the girl who plays the lead. Oh shoot, what's her name? I literally just watched this movie this morning. The girl who plays the lead. I think she did a fantastic job. She like you believed that this was her world. You believed that, you know, she was into all of the like the horror, like zombie, Frankenstein type stuff. She was into that culture. Her two friends, kind of the goof off and the straight laced guy. We did get a lot of character development from kind of the straight laced friend, except that he's attracted to every girl. It was a little generic, but we'll talk about that in the writing. But in terms of the acting, like everybody was very charismatic. Everybody did a really great job, with one notable exception. There's a character called Ramon. The actor who played Ramon was kind of flat. Everybody else was having fun with their parts. They were really getting into it. And Ramon's character just seemed very plain and basic. He was very peanut butter. He was fine, but I mean, meh. He could have, I feel like he could have had a little bit more fun with his role. I don't know if that was them not giving him anything to do. I don't know if that was the direction, or if that was just the actor. But all that is to say, the acting, for the most part, was really good. Ramon kind of brought it down a little bit, and for that reason, I give acting an 18 out of 20. All right, let's move on to directing. Like I said, the directing of this film, it was directed by Andre, oh shoot, what was his last name? Andre, he's from Sweden. Overbrook? Something, I can't remember. Andre O with like the slash inside the O, whatever. I love the tone of this movie. The tone alone of this movie, the look, the tone, the music was really good. The editing choices that they made, like everything worked. Everything about this worked. There were times with the lighting. There was a weird thing with the lighting. Sometimes when they were like downstairs in the basement, the lighting was perfect and you could see everything. But you have to stop and ask yourself, like, where is this light coming from? And then later in the movie, when they go back down to the basement, it's very dark, and that light just isn't there anymore. And it's really difficult to make out on screen when there's no magic light. We're going to call it magic light. When there's no magic light just emanating and illuminating the room, it's very difficult to make out what exactly is happening. That being said, all in all, I thought like the tone of this was great. It was fun. It was adventurous. They kept the pacing. It was moving along. Yeah, I thought they did a really great job with this. That's why I'm also giving directing 18 out of 20. Moving on to writing. The writing of the movie. Writing of the movie was still really good. I take a couple of nitpicks. It wasn't a generic script because the characters were really well fleshed out. With the exception of kind of like the one kind of like straight-laced friend. They didn't give him anything to do. He was just kind of there. Also, Ramon. Ramon's character, he was the outsider of the group, and he kind of, through the course of adventures and whatever. If you haven't seen this, I'm not going to spoil anything. But Ramon ends up kind of being a part of this group of friends, and you're not entirely sure why. Like, he has no reason to join this group of friends and go on their spooky adventures or whatever. Hey, do you want to see a haunted house? Okay. I don't know who you people are, but okay, I'll go see a haunted house with you. Yeah, I mean, Ramon was easily the weakest. He was easily the weakest part of this movie. Everything else works, and it works really well. They know... In the writing process, they knew the target audience for this. It was going to be for kids between the ages of like 13 and 18. And that was the demographic for this audience. Maybe even a little bit younger. Let's say like 13 to 17, 13 to 16, 13 to 15. That's a 2-year period, but whatever. It was like that demographic of kids. Give them something like really spooky, really eerie to watch, and not completely scare them. But it's also grown up enough that it's not going to be the Goosebumps movie, And I enjoyed the Goosebumps movie. Or what was the other one? A House with a Clock in Its Walls. A really fun movie. But again, its target demographic was a much younger audience. So this was definitely more of an adult kids movie, if that makes any sense. They knew what they were doing. That being said, there's certain things that didn't quite line up. It takes a few logistical jumps. There are a few logistical jumps. A little bit of Deus Ex Machina, but like that's to be expected in kind of like a spooky movie. My biggest complaint with the script is, again, much like the Goosebumps movie, is that this was based on a series of books that has individual stories contained therein. I get it. Like, all of the stories within Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark are short stories. I get it. I understand. So there's only so much that you can do with an extremely short story to, pull it out and make it a like a full-length feature film. They did a very good job at that. I think with Goosebumps, I would have enjoyed seeing, one book, one movie, instead of like 10 books or 20 books. Let's pack all those ideas or stories into one movie. I feel like this movie did this concept better than Goosebumps did. That being said, it would have been interesting to see, one story, one movie. But that being said, they did it pretty well. So all that combined, I'm going to give writing, and the dialogue was pretty good too, except for Ramon. Ramon was just flat. 17 out of 20. Moving on. The takeaway. What was the overall takeaway of this film? There's always a lesson to be learned anytime there's a horror film or a scary movie or, something a little dark and creepy. There are always going to be lessons to be learned. This particular movie, there weren't a lot of... they didn't bring those lessons to the forefront except for the main antagonist. The basic story of the movie is that there's these kids who live in a town. They're being picked on by the school bully, whatever. But there's also this small town in Pennsylvania has this rich history, or dark history rather, with one of its former inhabitants named Sarah Bellows. Sarah Bellows was a part of like this very affluent family back in the 1800s, and because she was born a little bit different, they mistreated her harshly, locked her in the basement. The official story was that when she died, it was because she committed suicide, as opposed to what really happened, which was her family just being like, you know what, you look different, you sound different, you're not one of us, we're gonna next you. So of course, like, supernatural, blah blah blah, her angry evil spirit lingered. There was also a sense of like voodoo in this movie, which I was like, that's kind of a cheap. If you want it to be supernatural, just let it be. Like, sometimes the world is weird enough, the world is crazy enough that sometimes, like, the unexplained doesn't need an explanation. It can just be weird enough by itself. And so I'm thankful that they didn't go down this route. They touched on it, like, oh, well, maybe it was voodoo, black magic, ooh. And then, it was later explained, nope, not black magic. So it was kind of like, I get it. It was a red herring. And there's a few really well thought out red herrings in the film, which are really interesting. But yeah, the overall takeaway is that, just because I think this is the moral of the story. Just because people mistreat you doesn't give you permission to mistreat other people. I think that's the main takeaway. It could have been hammered in a little bit better. All that being said, I still thought it was fun. It was good. It was a decent message. It was a fun ride. So for the overall takeaway, I'm giving 19 out of 20, which leaves us to our last point of effectiveness. How effective was the film? This film did an incredible job. This film did an absolutely incredible job at bringing its characters to life, making you care about the characters. This movie knew exactly what it was. It knew who its demographic audience was going to be. Knew exactly who its demographic audience was going to be. It knew what it was trying to do. It knew the limits that it could operate in. It knew how far it could go. It was really well thought out. Except for Ramon. I keep going back to Ramon. I didn't care for the character of Ramon. Why couldn't Ramon have just already been a part of the group? Why did he need to be an outsider? Just make Ramon already a part of the group. And I'm not going to reveal Ramon's secret, but of course Ramon has a secret. Why couldn't he just have that secret and just, already be a part of the group without having this whole, who are you? And now you're along for the ride. That was a little convoluted, but again, I'm willing to go along with it. Whatever, that's fine. Overall effectiveness, this film nailed it. It knew exactly what it was trying to do. It did it, and it also made a ton of money. That means people liked it. That means people went out to not just to go see it, but see it again. Maybe, again and again. This film knocked it out of the park. It checked off everything that it was trying to do. It knew exactly what it was, and it didn't hold anything back that didn't need to be held back. And for that reason, effectiveness, I'm giving it a perfect score of 20 out of 20, which leads the overall score of Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark is...
No, we juice!
Chill, bud.
No, but juice. No.
That's right. Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark, officially 92 out of 100. I think this is an excellent film. It's currently, like I said, it's currently ranked on Rotten Tomatoes at a 78. I think that this is better than a 78. And in fact, like I explained before, 78 doesn't mean how good or bad the movie is. It just means how many people liked the movie. That's it. Between critics and moviegoers alike, both combined together. So I give this movie a 92. I think it was really strong. It was really fun for what it was, for who the audience was targeted towards. And I really like movies like this. I don't like to be scared. Stephen King's remake of It was a great movie. That was a fantastic movie. It scared me to death. If you want to hear the full review, go find the review for It in my movie reviews. It was a great movie, but I will never watch it again because it scared me so bad. And that I still haven't seen the sequel. 4 months. I am not joking, you guys. 4 months with the amount of time it took for me to actually be able to go to sleep with the lights off. I was terrified of that film. I don't like to be scared. I don't like that feeling of being scared and paranoid and constantly looking over your shoulder. I don't like that. I like this kind of a movie, Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark, where it's more lighthearted. It's not trying to instill fear in the viewer. It's just really creepy and weird. And I love that kind of stuff. Anyway, guys, what do you think of Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark? Did you like it? Did you hate it? Are you somewhere in between? Let me know down in the comment section below. Also, what do you think of the score of 92? Do you think that's too generous? Or did you actually think it was a little bit better than 92 out of 100? Again, let me know down in the comment section below.